before that, she will lead us in a guided meditation. Liliane is a licensed Chinese medicine doctor who focuses on a holistic approach to healthcare, blending the ancient art of Oriental medicine with modern science. She lived 6 years in Japan and studied acupuncture, Qigong, and Oriental medicine in China, Japan, and the US, including study with the famous macrobiotic teacher, Michio Kushi. So welcome. I think Trey wants to say something, and Tejo, before we begin the meditation, which will begin at the sound of the gong.
Yes, thank you, Ann. I just want to remind everyone about dana. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dani is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment of expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can either do this directly or through Great Tree, and we will pass it on to them. So we'll put in the chat the Great Tree donation page. And if you donate, please specify in an email that it's for this talk. And if it's specifically for Dr. Liliane, you can put that in the email and we will send it to her.
Liliane, do you have a PayPal account?
No, it's for Great Tree. I'm not.
You need it. I know you need it.
No, no, really. I mean, that would not feel right nor good. So, well, of course.
Okay, well, thank you. So I just wanted to say a few things. I think many of you already know Liliane, and some of you probably experienced her the last time that she spoke, which was last fall, I think. But Liliane Myoren is her Dharma name. She lived in Asheville. She was a resident of Asheville for a long time, and several of us went to her home for acupuncture or for macrobiotic meals, and learned a lot about what kind of foods affect us in various ways. So she has a lot to offer, and today I think she's going to be talking about things that we should be thinking about in terms of this time of year, which will be very helpful, the kinds of foods we should be eating and other things about us. And it's a particularly unique talk because it's about tree, which is what we are all about right here. So thank you so much for coming, Liliane. And thank you all for coming to hear Liliane.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Yep. And actually, before we begin, a couple of things. Number one, I hope you admire the wonderful background. It's so sophisticated, more and more. So this is a tree in my backyard right now. Of course, I'm sure for you too, it's all in flowers. And it reminds me a little bit, not quite as splendid as those in Japan at this time of year, but it made me think, every year it makes me think of Japan, how they follow the cherry trees from south to north, how it's on the news, where they are and where they bloom. And I do remember that when I was there, teaching at the university, all the departments of the university would reserve a spot under a cherry tree in the park. And, you had to be fast because they went fast, and afterwards was too late. And of course, they would put this big blue tarp things under the trees, and there was lots of sake drinking and looking at the trees. But it was such a big event at the university for young people, old people. All the parks were just full of people. You know, it's a bit like in China with Tai Chi or Qigong. So that stayed with me. And my department would also have their spot under a cherry tree every year. So again, the one in my backyard is not quite as impressive, but it's still a sweet little tree doing its best. So I thought I would share it for our talk today. And the other thing I wanted to ask Tejo to say a few words about is we're going to be talking about trees, and in Chinese medicine, it's associated to the liver, and that's what we're going to explore a little bit. And of course, yes, I thought when Tejo asked me about the spring, I said, well, liver tree, I mean, liver tree for great tree. Yes, indeed. So would you tell us a little bit, Tejo, about the symbolism of the tree, you know, the body tree, and because in all cultures, trees have that very strong, I'll talk about that a bit more later, but, you know, has this very, very strong association. So would you say a few words about that, the tree and the body tree and the tree in Buddhism, and your choice of great tree?
Okay. Well, of course, Buddha awakened under the Bodhi tree. So that's pretty significant. And actually, we're pretty close to Buddha's birthday. He was born under a tree too, the sal tree. His mother reached up and grabbed a branch and he was born. That's where the story is. But great tree got its name because when a person is ordained, they receive two names, a way name and a dharma name. My dharma name is Tejo, and that's the name that I use. But my way name is actually Great Tree. And when you found a monastery or a temple, you take on the name of as your way name. You change your way name to the name of the temple, whatever you named the temple. But I liked my way name so much that I named the temple after my way name. And when I asked my teacher what this particular character for tree meant, this is there's different characters for tree. This tree means just any tree, a tree. He said it's a tree that reaches out in many directions and nurtures all beings. So that's another reason why I named it Great Tree, because it has that quality of reaching in many directions and helping all beings. So that's kind of the spirit behind the name of Great Tree. Is that enough?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. See, I did not even know that about that last part. So I'm glad I asked. All right, so I'm going to try to be high tech again and see if I can share my screen. I want to show you a picture, and I'll tell you, we'll start a small meditation, guided meditation. So tell me if you see it. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to start. I'll tell you in a moment. Slideshow, play from start. Okay, we're gonna go to the, okay, here is my picture of the tree. How would you like that?
Wow.
Isn't that something? All right, so if you want to ring the bell, and then if you people don't mind muting your mics, just so there's no noise during that time.
She's ringing.
Right. So take a deep, deep breath. And of course, today our meditation is going to be all around the symbolism of the tree in us, around us. So as we breathe, let's feel the breath go deeply into our roots, our feet, the end of our fingers, top of our head, let's awaken through the breath and the traveling of the breath. The tree of our body. From the top of the head to the roots of the feet, through the trunk, out into our branches, fingers, toes. Feel the breath comes to fill every inch of our body, of the tree that we are. Feel how the breath is a gentle inner wind that moves our abdomen, our chest. Everything in us is moving as we are motionless and still, just like leaves in the wind. We breathe our abdomen fills and empties. Movement, stillness, stillness, movement. Together. As human beings, we are very connected to the trees in particular. Like them, we are upward. Our hands go outward. And even though we move like the trees, we need to be rooted and stable. Feel how we have a breath, a wind, the one that moves our abdomen, our diaphragm, our chest. And let's explore also a more subtle wind, an even more subtle breath. Bring your attention to the south of your body, the head. Bring your attention behind your eyes. And then let's travel to the east of our body, the left, and let's go to the end of our little finger. And let's travel to the west, to our middle finger, to the palm of our hand. Let's travel to the north, to the big toe and the small toe, to our knees. Can you feel how quickly, when we bring our attention, that part of the body wakes up, an awareness, there is a saying in Chinese medicine, where the attention goes, the qi follows. This flow of the qi, whether our breath or this subtle, energetic touch that goes wherever we want. if we put our attention to it, is part of the tree, part of our liver. This inner wind also belongs to tree energy, liver energy. Ancient Taoists say that the liver is in charge of the flow of qi in our body, in nature. When we move our muscles, our articulation, elbow, knee, that's part of the wood structure of our body that needs to be flexible in order to work. The flow of the breath down into our abdomen is also tree energy, liver energy. And that very subtle wind of our attention that can travel anywhere is also tree energy, liver energy. Let's feel that structure of the tree, the support of the tree. Support in our body, support in nature. In our spine. How it supports our whole being, branching out in millions of nerves for quick communication. With the breath, gently contract the abdomen and feel the breath, the qi, go up the spine, up to the head. And then gently come down the front of the body, back into the abdomen. a circle of breath up the tree of the spine. Coming down like water to refill the abdomen, the source of water, the roots of our tree. Let the image go deeper and deeper of the tree, because in Taoism it's not just an image, it's a reality. Let's feel that wood structure, that tree structure. Let's feel our thirst for light, just like the leaves, just like the chlorophyll in nature. Very often, we forget to nourish the roots, our tree, our inner tree. Just like we also forget to take care of our forests. The tree is everywhere in our body, in the spine, in the cells. A structure of life. And when we forget to breathe, to oxygenate parts of our body through the breath or through our attention, it becomes dry. It becomes stuffy. It lacks air and light. When you sit zazen, when we sit zazen, do meditation, it reflects that need for reconnecting. Our body, our breath, our wind, our tree. So to finish this meditation this morning for you, this afternoon for me, I suggest that we move our body and just put your hands, your arms above your head. A simple and great movement. to extend our trunk, our limbs. Breathe in, come down, and breathe out. Again, breathe in and breathe out. And just move gently. Notice how our head is also another tree. The neck is another trunk. And we say in Chinese medicine that the neck is the site of transportation of tree energy. And then we have another tree in our head. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start this short presentation on tree energy and liver energy. When I thought of this small, gentle guided meditation, the one thing I wanted to convey was movement. And the question I'm going to ask at the beginning, and really let me preface this by saying that certainly it's a presentation and it's of course limited. So what I would really like you to do or invite you to do is let that image speak in you. Because when we start, it's endless. We can discover so many similarities, so many aspects of the tree. And that's what becomes very exciting in terms of health, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen, talking to people who've had, let's say, a diagnosis of something that's not good or a problem, and they have reports from doctors that are difficult to understand and hard to read, and they go on the internet, what this enzyme does in the liver and why too much leptin, and feeling a bit overwhelmed. And not at all to dismiss any of that, because it's helpful and can help our understanding. But when we can translate it into a simple language, one that speaks to us right away, we get empowered in terms of our health, because right away it speaks to us and we right away know that there are things we can do. And I've seen that in particular because liver, as you're going to understand, liver problems, I would say everybody has liver problems these days. It's would be really the rare person who does not, and I certainly don't know any. So because our livers, they detoxify like the trees and the forests are probably the element that are with water that are suffering the most on our planet today, with deforestation and the disappearance of trees. So, and in our body, it's the same, with pesticides and toxins and all that goes with our modern life. Our liver is in the front line to help us. So, everybody needs to take care, especially of our liver. I mean, of everything, of course, but let's say again, frontline, our livers are there. So when people would tell me that they had these liver issues, whatever, if you talk about a tree, right away, I've never seen anybody not respond to that. You know, oh yes, I have a favorite tree in my yard. Oh, I love to sit under a tree. Or I love to watch trees. Or there are birds in the trees in my yard. Everybody has some stories around trees. It's so powerful. And when we relate to our bodies in that living way of nature, well, you know, there are many things that we can do, because, you know, how do we take care of a tree? We know it needs water. We know it needs hydration. We know it needs minerals, you know, if we think about the soil that it needs. So all of those images, they're not just, and we're going to see that together a little bit, they're not just mental exercise or even beautiful spiritual exercises. They really go all across the spectrum of the physical, emotional, and spiritual. There's no difference. And personally, that's what I love about Taoism and that old tradition that's at the base of Chinese medicine, is the fact that there's truly no separation. You know, we tend to say, oh, we're all one. And we like to say that, and it might speak to us. But the truth is that when, at least for me, when I understand, you know, deeply with Chinese medicine, I realize I am the tree. And in Taoism, in Chinese medicine, it is not, again, just an image, it is a truth. So, and that's what we're going to explore. And again, I really encourage you to totally embrace that in you and apply it to your life and to your body and to your liver as well. So, why tree? Let's start very simply. It's a structure, a shape, and movement, right? A tree includes roots, trunk, branches, and this very simple. There's more to it, but you know, we'll do simple. Material is wood. There's bark, the skin. So again, it's not just mental. So right away you can translate into the body. Bark of the tree, skin of a human body. Essence, it's the sap. In human body, blood. We have leaves and chlorophyll, right? And we're going to explore that a little bit more. Buds, flowers, fruit, meaning everything. A tree bears fruit and matures, right? What we explored together during our meditation is that maybe the most, or a very important aspect of tree in Chinese medicine is that it's the structure of communication, whether it's mechanical communication, nervous communication, breath communication, subtle communication, you know, and that's why we went from our toes to our head, to the east and the west. We are really an inner landscape. We really have wind, and we are nature, you know, inside and outside. So there's a process of development from roots to maturation and gift that's based on communication, right? That's the first thing. So that's why in Chinese medicine, the saying is that liver enables the smooth and free flow of qi. And again, qi can be very concrete. You can put qi in your tire, you know, in order for your bicycle to work, for example. So I saw that in China, there were qi stations where you could put qi in your in your bicycle. It can be very concrete. It can be the breath. It can be electricity. It can be that subtle energy that we felt, you know, with our attention. And interestingly, this illustration here comes from a book of Chinese medicine. No, sorry, not Chinese medicine, a book of Western medicine that doesn't speak about liver tree, but I picked it because, as you see, kind of intuitively, there's that relationship that's known between the tree, the structure of the liver and the tree. So that comes from an anatomy book, Western anatomy book. And so basically, it's a communication network, and we have many words, right, in our language that represent that. We talk about a genealogical tree. We talk about a phone tree, bronchial tree, tree of life. So it's a structure of life, a basic structure of life. And it's the human structure, but it's a structure of life everywhere. So, of course, Leonardo da Vinci and many painters have explored that structure. And here are a few internet pictures, again, taken randomly, that show that we do have a kind of intuitive awareness of that tree function in the world through our vocabulary and our expressions. And it's a metaphor that, you know, I call a holographic metaphor, meaning that it's not just the tree, it's the shape. So the tree is a symbol and a beautiful, majestic symbol of that structure. But you find it in many different parts of the body or different parts of nature. So I talked about the spine, right? And look at all the roots of of the nerves at the bottom. I didn't put the dot, by the way. It's kind of a internet censorship. So the roots of nerves. So many problems actually happen there because of that nervous structure of roots at the bottom of the spine, right? We have, look at the lungs also. They have a tree structure as well. A leaf has an inner tree structure. A little piece of parsley has an inner structure of tree. So basically, when we say tree, what that means is vegetation. Tree is the symbol for all vegetation because that is the structure of vegetation. So basically, and the basic structure of life. So if I was to show you a nervous cell, we would see a tree structure. So it's the frame and articulation of life. That's what enables movement, transformation of earth, water, minerals, and fire. Even fire, you know, has a tree structure because it goes outward, right? A tree does not keep its warmth for itself. It gives out. So that expansive movement is what tree means and what tree represents. It's a structure without which nothing circulates. So when we say liver energy in Chinese medicine, it says it governs sinews and tendons. We can translate that in our modern, with our modern words. So it's articulations, it's muscle fibers, it's nervous communication. So electricity is part of it. So the very first pathology of stagnation, of tree, is of course stagnation. So I always tell my students first year that if they want to impress their friends and family about what they know in Chinese medicine, to do a diagnosis, look at them very seriously and say, you suffer from liver qi stagnation, and you will be right. Okay. Again, as soon as we are stressed, as soon as we are rushed, and I mean, you know, not just physically rushed, but in our mind, as soon as we overthink, there is a stagnation. And there's another saying in Chinese medicine that goes, pain is stagnation, stagnation is pain. So for example, I know you're starting Sesshin for some of you here. So we can say that when we do Sesshin, it's an attempt at letting that flow go everywhere. Because when we are in everyday life, many parts of our tree are not breathing. You know, we have dead branches, literally or symbolically. There are places we don't inhabit. You know, it can be the abdomen or the feet that get cold easily, or, you know, we can say circulation. But basically, yes, circulation is blood, but the qi is what sends the blood also. So that's the function of liver. All right. So the first pathology is stagnation, and you can take it in any way you want: emotional, spiritual, physical. Let's look at wood, which is what a tree is made of. It's resistance and flexibility. So again, vegetation. So it can be fiber. Let's say fiber. It's the fiber of life, the fiber of our body. It leads the movement of the sap. So we saw the spine. It surrounds and protects the sap. Interestingly enough, wood is what insulates electricity, right? So one application of that is like in MS, you know, and Parkinson's and neurological diseases in Chinese medicine, there is automatically a problem with liver energy. And again, you understand now that liver is more than the organ. So when there's, you know, the myelin sheath is not insulated anymore, and there are kind of spontaneous movements, uncontrolled movements. So that's liver energy, that's the electricity that's not conducted correctly anymore in the tree. Okay, so that's one of the applications. I say that, you know, not to go too far or to also, or either to simplify, because there can be other things. But for sure, when there are diseases like this, whether it's arthritis, Parkinson's, MS, you will never go wrong by treating your liver or helping your friends or, you know, the people you know, treat their livers, because that's the first thing we need to free, the first thing we need to help. And look here, these are on the left, the picture is our eyelashes. Of course, they've been dyed here for the purpose of the demonstration, but it's a strong microscope, and see how that, again, that vegetation, tree energy is there. Here on the right is a keratin, which is part of our skin. And you see how it has a wood structure. Here is a hair. And, you know, that's the beauty of our times, I think, right now, is that with science and our technology, the more we see and the more it validates what ancient people said. So that wood structure, the more you look at it, it's like, wow, it's really there and really visible at a microscopic level. So what are the specificities of tree and vegetation? You know, how can it help us? It means growth. Right? So we have hair that grows, we have nails that grow. It's also an internal capacity of regeneration. That's the good news also. It's the only element in nature that regrows, meaning water, for example, does not, fire does not, unless you start it again. Wood, you cut it, and like we see here, and it grows again. And it's a world of chlorophyll and photosynthesis, meaning it works and functions with light, that amazing relationship of life and light. It's also the green world. Everything is green. Even, if you look at tomatoes where they're red, but their plant is green. So it's all vegetation that greens. It transforms minerals into glucose for all living beings, right? So meaning that it's vegetation that can digest earth and minerals to give it back to us and to all animals, all right? It's between sky and earth and vertical, just like us, human beings, and it nourishes all life. It's a basic source of energy and it gives out, all right? Which is why Tejo mentioned, symbol of generosity and branching out and giving to people. I could not resist putting that picture here from Japan. I mean, Japan never ceases to amaze me when I discover things like that. I don't know, Tejo, if you know about that daisuki, which is a way, and in Kyoto, apparently, that's where there are some of these forests. They have managed to plant forests above other forests, meaning trees from trees. And it's called daisuki, if you want to explore that. I've also found a wonderful man called Miyawaki, who he reminds me a little bit of Fukuoka, who was one of the pioneers of permaculture. And Miyawaki is a man who teaches how to grow forests in your backyards. So if you want to do that at Great Tree or in your yard, actually, I'm seriously thinking about maybe giving it a try. Because one thing too is that reminds me of the Sangha in Zen, which is a forest is much more powerful than an isolated tree. Trees actually like being together and they support one another. They have an incredible web of communication through mushrooms. I mean, there's more and more that's discovered underneath the ground, how roots communicate and what an intricate system of communication it is. And how, we do harm to trees when we plant just one. I mean, it's like when we're alone, it will manage, but trees like to be together. They like forests, they like being in groups. So Miyawaki is somebody, and apparently in Paris, they've been working with some of his concepts to have small forests in urban spaces. So very interesting. Chinese medicine says also liver manifests into nails. Here again, look at that. That's a microscopic picture of the surface of our nails. That's wood, right? And it grows like trees. So what I'm not going to go into diagnosis, but I just want to show you again, it's not just a knowledge that stays in our mind. In Chinese medicine, we use that in an alive way. It's a tool of diagnosis. So meaning if you want to check your liver health, you can check your nails. It can show fungal infections like here. It can show parasites like here. It can show toxic heat like this picture. It can show like here more dryness, lack of minerals or anemia if it's white. So, it's an alive knowledge. We are nature and we can observe what's going on, just like we can observe what's in our garden or the plants that grow in our home. And we know in our in scientific knowledge, in our science, that liver grows back. It can regenerate to 75%. It's pretty amazing. If we have 25% left of our liver, it can regrow. And here too, this is not a picture from Chinese medicine. It's something I found, you know, on the internet. Again, that kind of intuitive knowledge of the liver tree, the only organ that can regrow, and it does organize everything that grows in nature and in our body. That's tree energy. Okay, so basically anything that grows regenerates and heals. So hair and nails, skin, our wounds need strong liver energy to heal. So that's why in diabetes, where there's liver and pancreatic disorder, wounds don't heal correctly. Cells regrow. And I wanted to share with you a plant that's well known in Chinese medicine called Reshou Wu, which is Polygonum. And I'm going to tell you the little story because I like that story. Once upon a time, there was an old man, herborist. You say herbalist. You know, I'm at the point where French and English are starting to sometimes mix into one another. So who knew herbs very well. And, but he had health issues himself, and he was, you know, in bad health and didn't have any sex appeal. He had kind of lanky, dry, white hair. He was, his spine was not straight, and he was old before his age, you know, kind of little bookworm that did not do so well. But he knew plants, and he had a little hut in the woods. And one day, as he went into the woods for his usual walk, he noticed this plant right here. And this plant, as you can see in the corner, has a kind of round black root. And he thought, black. And then you see it has tendrils that go up, and it was going up the trunk of a tree. And a bit like our DNA, you know, or like the symbol of yin and yang crossing. And so he thought, oh, black, meaning kidney energy, a root, kidney, the root of the tree. And tendrils, tree energy, you know, going up. And then very green, very beautiful. And like yin and yang, so he thought that has to be a really good plant for health. So he carefully dug out one of the roots, took it home, and started making decoctions of Reshou Wu. And then took it every day. Thankfully, there were many Reshou Wu, many plants growing in his area. So he did it for quite a while. The legend doesn't say how long, but we can think probably a couple of years. And oh, miracle, suddenly his hair became dark again. His spine started to get straight again. His skin, his bark started glowing again. And from dehydrated and dry wood that he was, he became suddenly a beautiful oak tree. So, of course, he attracted a woman very quickly, got married, and they had many children. And I put the picture of this child with their hair growing so wild, because I thought maybe her or his mother took some Reshowu during pregnancy. So Reshowu means Mr. Black Hair. Reshowu, Mr. Black Hair. And so any Chinese shop where you would go and say, oh, I'm looking for a plant, even if you don't remember the name, for a plant because my hair is falling or my hair is too thin or my nails are dry. And in some formulas, it's called hair and nail. Basically, because what Reshowu does is regenerate the water of the kidneys and the wood of the liver and the dehydration of the liver. So it helps regrow. And so it's a basic tonic. It's considered one of the precious Taoist herbs. Okay, so that's the story of Reshowu. And then when we talk about tree and vegetation, we get into that amazing mystery of life, of the bond between humans and trees and vegetation, chlorophyll and blood, chlorophyll and hemoglobin. So number one, those colors are complementary. Artists, and some of you are artists, of course, you know that red and green are complementary colors. Red of hemoglobin, blood, green of chlorophyll. This structure that you see here has a scientific name that's called porphyrin. At the center of chlorophyll, we have a molecule of magnesium. At the center of hemoglobin, we have a molecule of iron, all right, which gives the red color. And magnesium, that gives the green color. Iron is yang, magnesium is yin. So you see that amazing relationship between the animal world, the red blood family, and the green world, the green blood family of vegetation, made for one another. Right? So that complementary features of both are truly amazing. So here again, we can draw conclusions right away for our liver health, which is the benefits of chlorophyll, green blood, for our liver. Chlorophyll regulates the production of red blood cell. And it's good because today we have been eating so much meat, you know, and such a carnivorous diet that you have many people today, and I really see more and more of that issue, who have too much iron in the blood. And it translates into, you know, it's dangerous. It can lead to cancer. And so there's anemia on one hand, lack of minerals, and you have too much iron on the other hand. So the basic balance of iron is through vegetation, through chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is an adaptogen, meaning that it will help if you have too much iron, and it will help if you don't have enough. It oxygenates blood, detoxifies liver and blood. It's great for the skin. And let's not forget that skin is part of the photosynthesis of our tree, light absorption. So meaning that if our skin is diseased, we don't absorb light as well. It has healing and antibacterial properties. It's great for fungal infections, candida, intestinal problems, and it stimulates immunity. So, you know, here again, I'm not going too in detail, but basically, those are our liver allies. Green, green, green. Leafy greens, in juices, in soups. Of course, beets. The roots are good for the blood, and the greens, don't throw them away. They're fantastic for health. Then there's a golden mine of minerals. Carrots. So everything that helps, you know, for the eyes also, like carrots are good with vitamin A, right? Everything that helps photosynthesis is also good. Vitamin A, vitamin D, which of course is stored in the liver. You know, our science and Chinese medicine with different words come together. Apple, celery are good. So basically, you can't go wrong with greens. And it's one of the few things that, I mean, of course, you can always eat too much, but you wouldn't have too much of greens. So let's see now what Chinese medicine says about liver, gallbladder. And without me telling you to memorize, you can easily know that. And that was my approach, you know, when I was in Chinese medicine school. I don't like to memorize things I don't understand. So that's why I started with tree to get to this, because now you can understand everything that Chinese medicine says about liver and gallbladder energy, what it means. So it's not just the organ, it's functions. So we have spring, beginning, right? East, rising sun, the green color, ascending and outward movement. The taste is sour or astringent, acidic, which is really the taste of young buds. You know, trees, when they're not ripe, they're sour, right? As they ripen, they absorb, you know, more of the minerals and they transform it into glucose. So it's a protective taste of liver energy and young vegetation. Now, let's remember in Chinese medicine, we always talk about balance. So sour taste is good for liver energy, and too much sour taste will damage liver energy. So we have a problem with over acidic food and hyperacidity in our body. That's also liver function. As soon as we have acidic conditions, our liver needs help. It opens into the eyes, all of that we've seen, and the secretion is tears, okay, which is blood without hemoglobin. The hours are from 11 to 1, 1 to 3. Here, you could not guess that, maybe, but interestingly enough, that's, I would say 80% of insomnia problems occur during those times and have to do with digestion and liver problems. And it has been found that melatonin, which is now used as a remedy for insomnia, these are also the hours where there is the highest secretion of melatonin by our pineal gland. So interesting. Let's look at the positive emotions, because tree energy also translates into emotion. So growth, optimism, creativity, projects, planification, courage, patience, kindness, generosity, giving, opening toward others. These are tree qualities. Negative emotions, stagnation, depression, difficulty moving forward and making decisions, impatience, anger, aggressiveness, and cruelty. So it also translates into very practical, good cooking methods. That doesn't mean these need to be the only ones, but very good cooking method for liver energy, especially in the spring, are steaming, fermentation, germination. Of course, sprouts are pure liver energy. So if you put sprouts in your salads or in your juices, that's liver regeneration. And Chinese medicine has something a little bit more mysterious, talks about the soul of the liver, the hun, which is translated as celestial soul, that one that goes toward heaven. So I'll come back to that a little bit later. Let's maybe finish this part and we'll come back to that. So Chinese medicine, liver opens into the eyes, of course, right? Photosynthesis, the organ of light. And again, very practical. It's a tool of diagnosis. All of these situations show liver disorders. Here, the one on the left down there is probably liver cancer with, you notice, I would say psychiatric disorder here. And it's also a tool for healing. So when we think of photosynthesis, when we think of liver, when we think of eye problems, you see that it means gentle exposure to light, you know, to sunshine early morning, for example. There's a Qigong exercise, which is called drinking light, where you look at the gentle sunlight, at, you know, when it's soft in the morning or in the evening, and you switch your eyelids, you know, you very quickly, and you visualize drinking light. You kind of bathe your eyes with light. Then again, you want to avoid stagnation. So there are many points around the eyes. So massaging all around the eyes, because it's the eyes are not well irrigated with blood, or I mean, they have what they need, but it's an area that gets dry easily. So stagnation can easily happen in our eyes. So that means Qigong for the eyes or yoga for our eyes. And during your session, you can certainly, at the beginning of meditation, you know, do inner movements of the eyes, because it's that's our liver energy, both as a tool of healing and as a diagnosis to prevent dryness and stagnation. Of course, in nature, our trees are suffering, our livers are suffering, and they're linked to our breath, of course. What trees do in nature, they do in our body, and we need also to respect the body of the earth with trees. It prevents erosion, they prevent, and again, I say tree, understand vegetation. They anchor the soil, they do that in us. They protect from winds, they do that in us. Wind can be emotional. Wind can be the winds of life, can be the pandemic that suddenly comes. If we are not anchored, if our tree is not solidly rooted, we're not going to be able to resist, right? Trees hydrate and exhale clouds. That's the role of our vegetation. So meaning our livers, both in nature and in us, play a huge part in water resources. I gave the example here, you might know this little story called L'homme qui plantait des arbres, the man who planted trees, about how an old man was planting oaks, you know, planting, what is that, the fruit of oaks? I forget the name in English suddenly.
Acorn?
Yes, thank you, acorns. And, you know, not worrying, just patiently planting acorns. And slowly, you know, trees started, they would wait for the rain. And when rain came, they started growing and just patiently growing trees. And he died not seeing all the forests that he had started during his life. And it was a very dry area where people would go crazy from the wind, because wind can really, when you're not protected, you know, can really make you feel agitated and in bad cases, mad. And so he grew forests, and then the forest attracted clouds. So meaning rain comes from the soil. Rain doesn't come from the sky first. It comes from the soil. So it created clouds, it brought rains. And of course, that's what they did in Israel too, when they planted trees. So they, you know, they bring water, and in our body too. When our livers are dry from too much coffee, too much alcohol, too much meat, they get dry and we get dehydrated. They transform minerals into glucose, and they nourish all beings. It's an oasis for all life. Birds get protection there, animals, all life depends on vegetation. So it really shows we are indeed crazy. Our livers are wild. You know, how can we do things like we're doing? We are literally cutting the branch upon which we are sitting, right? So we do need the work of Mr. Miyawaki to plant forests again. And here is what happens when there are no more trees: a dry soil, dry bones, dry articulations, desertification, and, you know, the soil that cannot grow anymore. So again, we can apply that to ourselves. The same happens. Here is liver pathology. Here on the top is cirrhosis of the liver, where the liver becomes literally like dry wood and darkens like coal. And here is like, you know, a liver that is sick from fungus, fungal infection. It's liver cancer here. And you see how just like a rotten tree, you know, a sick tree. And of course, today, again, together, we go together. Meat consumption, here is what we're doing to our world. See how dry, how desperate that is for the animals as well as for us. 63% of deforestation in the Amazon is caused by meat consumption. And it's really something that as human beings, we don't really want to hear. You know, there's such resistance to really look. It's like we want to talk about all kinds of problems, you know, and sure, they're important, transportation and on and on. But the truth is today, our earth is calling for a change in our eating habits. You know, it's like the United Nations have published report after report saying that our way of life and our way of eating is just not sustainable in the future. And many people, I have to say, tell me, oh, I don't eat meat anymore, or very little, you know, but somehow we think we exclude. You know, here I put the water consumption on that chart here for carrots and tomatoes and 1 kilo of beef. But you see that pork and poultry, and of course we are also destroying our oceans. So meat, you know, fish and chicken are not vegetables. We need to to include them when we talk about meat, and they concur. It concurs to the deforestation, and also to the fact that in order to have such huge surfaces for cattle, we need to evict indigenous people, and we need to, to take their land. And so that's what's happening in so many countries why there's so much migration, because people don't own land anymore, and they have to flee and violence, and then of course a dry soil and no more rain. I mean, it's so intricate. And so we really need to start with our own tree, because the problems are just the same. And I don't know if I wanted to show you this also. Look, here is what is called a fatty liver. See how it looks just like pate, covered with grease. Here is a gallbladder that has burst from too much meat and animal products. That includes cheese and, all this cholesterol that solidifies. So the fatty liver that we inflict on geese, we have in ourselves. Again, one is not just an image, it's a reality. And I wanted to come back to that briefly, is to why do old practices, and I'm not talking about today, because unfortunately, including in yoga, so many practices have forgotten their own roots. Why was it that, for meditation, it has always been recommended to eat vegetables, to practice vegetarianism? In all traditions, we find that. And again, it's not, certainly it is a spiritual practice, but it's not just, it is a practice of compassion for all life. But it's also because that is the food that is the most subtle and the most appropriate to develop our health and our most subtle glands, in particular the pineal gland, meaning that the weight of death, the weight of fear in animals, and the weight of meat that blocks liver energy, blocks the breath, that subtle energy that is all of our body. So we block that inner energy that we try to develop through yoga, qigong, zazen. But we do too. It's like, I don't know, for example, we know very well that it would not be a good idea to drink a few liters of wine before sitting zazen, or doing yoga. But somehow we miss that relationship when it comes to meat, when it comes to food. So light foods, vegetation is really the food. And, some fasting, light eating. And, I know Great Tree, we practice that during Zazen when it's not COVID time, chewing very well, and which makes us little, and wonderful vegetable food, grain and plants, and we can find everything we need in that. And today I'm, maybe when I teach, I really emphasize that even more than I used to, meaning I don't think at this point we can ignore that any longer. It's too big of a problem. And if we all make justifications, I like meat, or whatever justification, well, everything dies, all of that, we just contribute to the problems that we need to face today. So, tree energy is also physical and mental balance. So again, it's real, it's in our body. So a saying in Chinese medicine is that we need to be full below in our roots and empty above, light above. And we are usually, for all of us, or most of us, I would say, empty below and full above, you know, mental energy, but we have no energy in our abdomens, in our kidneys, in our roots. And so some of this, you know, in yoga teachings, here is tree posture. In Qigong, there's also a tree posture to develop that rooting and that balance. So meaning that liver is associated with windy emotions, fluctuating moods, anger, irritability, impatience, frustration, depression. That's the tree that doesn't grow. Apathy, burnout, schizophrenia, paranoia, delusions, hallucinations. So what that means in Chinese medicine hospitals, when they treat any psychiatric problems, they always address the liver, the health of the liver and the heart. I mean, there are other things, you know, again, but you can never go wrong by taking care of the tree, because it's a structure, it's the organization, the communication of our nervous system and of all of our cells, that structure. So positive energy, of course, we can be just like the sunflowers, you know, we are seeking light. We want to understand, we practice, we question, we search, we sit, we explore. Okay, that's that relationship to light that we seek and crave so much. I chose a beautiful painting of Vermeer, one of my favorite painters, who was he was fascinated, like many Renaissance painters, by light. And, you know, here it's the eyes and the light on the skin, you know, and it's really that search for light. So it can express itself through creativity. So when we are creative, we express liver energy, but we heal our liver energy. The communication goes both ways. So artistic vision, beauty, project, planning, you know, going toward the light, that's also liver energy. Determination, perseverance, patience. So if you remember, for a few of you, or for some of you who were in the fall when we talked about the lung, I said lung is the organization of space, right? Well, liver energy is the organization in time, communication in time. So whether we need to be fast or slow, you know, a plant has a rhythm to grow, and you cannot pull on a plant to make it grow faster. So patience is part of liver energy. Impatience shows when we grow, when we pull on the plant, and when we are weakening the roots. So you can, again, please take that into your heart and your own understanding, because there's so much that we can apply there, that we can use there, both to inspire us, to help us heal, and to guide us also. You know, I think personally that when I choose food, for example, if I think, oh, I should not eat that, that's not good for me, it doesn't work very well, right? But if I can really be present to the fact that I'm nourishing my inner tree, that I'm taking care of my ocean with my kidneys, that I'm taking care of my my earth, my inner earth, that, you know, I want to calm the stormy winds. Somehow the relationship changes to, you know, in terms of what I want to do. It's not the same anymore. You know, there's a kind of love, affection, respect that comes. And that translates, of course, you know, into, well, when we look at a flower, when we look at a tree and we think, oh, that's me. And how can I take care of that tree, that plant, and me? You know, everything changes and really being one becomes alive. It's not just a statement, you know, a kind of unattainable mystical statement. It's very grounded in reality and in our physical being, right? So I think that's it. Just my website here, but I'm going to stop there. Stop sharing. Voila. I'm going to stop there with that presentation. And I know it's not much time, but I would like to open to, you know, to questions or comments. And just adding that if there's one thing I would like for you to get out of this, is to take that image of tree and that beautiful gift that's within this old knowledge, you know, of how to relate to ourselves and nature, and let it speak to you.